Well, Argyle's difficult form continued on Saturday as they fell to a fifth straight defeat in all competitions, losing 3-1 at the hands of Huddersfield Town. Yeah, Remembrance Day game to forget for Argyle as they slipped to the bottom of the Sky Bet League One season table with that defeat. It is now 4 losses in a row in the league. It is no win since the 27th of September. That game against Burton seems a long, long time ago. This is Argyle Analysis, and we will do our best to pick the bones out of what happened up in Yorkshire on Saturday. As always, joining me in the studio is Aaron Cusack. And Aaron, desperately disappointing really again for Argyle.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? Where every game there's less and less optimism and hope that they can get something from it. And it's becoming a bit of a spiral where we're clearly going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk before the game. It was two sides that were completely out of form. Neither team had won in the league since the 27th of September. They were both on big losing streaks in the league. Yet it was Huddersfield, the home side, that were able to just piece something together and get the points.
It was, and like I said, I don't think they'd won at home since like the 6th of September. So they were nearly 2 months without a victory at home, and you know how that can impact home teams, especially with their home fans. Not only, they're not full of optimism themselves, but they probably would have looked at the fixture and gone, well, this could be an opportunity. They're not in great form to springboard their own season back on track. And then sadly, it was at the expense of us. Yeah,
and presumably Argyle fans, players, everybody would have thought the exact same in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
It wasn't to be, though. We'll go through the game in a finer detail in just a moment, but in terms of where the game was won and lost was the goals, of course. Sure. Let's have a look at them now. And it did take until the 45th minute for them to break the tie.
Yeah, it did. Radulovic just getting on the end of Charles's cross, and we'll go in a bit more detail a bit later, but this was probably at the end of a sustained period of pressure for Huddersfield. So you could argue in that period they deserved to take the lead. And then as the second half grew on, Charles with quite an easy finish at the back post, just kind of getting free of Joe Hatch, where it goes through his legs and just a tap in. And then, the final goal on another day, is that a foul potentially? But nonetheless, Shire picks up the ball and runs at a very tired Cornell Such, who hadn't played for a number of weeks. And take nothing away from the finish, Charlie. I appreciate it was game, set, match anyway before that moment, but it is a terrific finish. But you can see Cornell Such is just tired there. It's a tired movement to try and close the space, and it's whipped in. And then, a couple of minutes later, we did get a consolation. Talai scoring yet again. I think that puts him top of the scoring charts in the league. So it seems really ironic that we're at the bottom and yet we've got one of the most formed goal scorers in the division. So they've got to pick themselves up, and they've got to keep going at it game by game. I know it sounds obvious, but it's sooner, hopefully, rather than later, the tide will turn.
No, Talai scoring for Argyle for the first time in 442 minutes, and Argyle had found the back of the net. That was, I suppose, a positive to come from the result. However, he has scored, I think it's, 3, 4, 5 out of the last 7 goals that Argyle have scored in the league. He's scored that. He scored our last 3.
Yeah.
And that will be one of the areas of concern, presumably.
Oh, very much so. We've said in previous years, in previous seasons, what you can't rely on is one person to score all your goals. Because if you are relying on one person and that person doesn't deliver, who else is going to step up? And that's currently where we're at. Other than Talai, who else is contributing to scoring goals? And if you haven't got that, you don't deserve to climb the table because you're too reliant on one person. Opposition will naturally do their best to neutralise that main threat, meaning you become really kind of blunt in that attacking area of the pitch.
Yeah, let's get into the game now then, and we'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's probably fair to say that for the majority of the first half, it was a good away performance from Argyle.
Yeah, so game plan aside, like if we talk about the first 20 minutes or so, their game plan would have been defend your box with aggression, win first contacts, win second contacts, win knockdowns. So this is in the first minute. So first minute, Ross and I think it might be Boateng doing enough to put Huddersfield's contact off, meaning you win a goal kick. 2 or 3 minutes later, that Ross winning the first contact. So in terms of defending their box, they would have been fairly happy. So this moment here, this is about the 5th minute, so 3 corners in the opening 5 minutes. Knockdowns, be first to react. So in terms of defending that, they would have been pleased. In open play, they would have said, look, if you can't win the ball, stop forward progression. So in this instance here, the balls are going to go wide. So the nearest players, which are going to be Owen, Dale and Galloway, what's your job? Your job, if you can't win the ball, stop the ball going in the box, which they did really well. And they doubled up here. Like, they didn't allow easy crosses into the box, meaning you didn't have to defend the box. So they would have been happy. Law McCabe doing exactly the same thing with Marcus Harness 2 or 3 minutes later. All right, conceding a corner, but doing his defensive duties. So the opening 20 minutes, I think they would have been fairly happy with that attitude to stop forward progression. Bradley Ibrahim doing a good bit of work there to just thwart and snuff out danger. And this was a little bit of a theme. So they would have been quite pleased and quite happy with how the things were materialising. I think the coaches would have been happy with that game plan as well. Cornell Suits winning a goal kick. And, you know, what they also had as well is an awareness of trying to stop forward play on Huddersfield's build-up line. So Bradley Ibrahim here, can you just do enough to force them into unforced errors, which is what Ruskin does there, concedes a corner. So just doing enough to put them off, you know, Talai chasing his own flick on, not giving up because you don't know what it might return, i.e. can we gain possession in territory higher up the pitch? Law McCabe locking on as well, Sorensen slicing it out for a throw-in. And then the last one we've got here, Talai just doing enough to put him off the nearest Huddersfield defender, poor throw, we've now gained territory. So from like a 3-stage perspective, defend your box first and foremost, win your knockdowns, defend wide areas, stop your crosses, and if we can disrupt them from playing on the highest line, then you feel like the out of possession game plan was playing out quite nicely.
Yeah. Right, let's have a look at the other scores then from Sky Bet League One across the weekend. A couple of really interesting results in here. Most notably towards the bottom of the table, Burton continue their fine form, beating Bradford. I don't think they've lost actually since they lost to Argyle. But Peterborough 5, Wimbledon 0, a massive result. And then the page previous, Blackpool getting victory means, unfortunately, hard view for Argyle supporters, that Argyle do prop up the division after 15 games played. Not at all, Aaron, what would have been predicted by most people, not just Argyle fans, you know, looking forward to this Sky Bet League One campaign. However, it is the position that Argyle are in, and it's no longer the start of the season. It's no longer just a bad start. It's getting a little bit serious.
Well, we're a third of the way in now, so now it's starting to iron out, and the league table doesn't lie, Charlie. And you know what's really I know we've got some injuries, so we have to accept that. But what's really quite shocking is the performances against Burton, the win against Stockport in particular.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, where we are, let's be honest, we're bottom of the table. We've lost the most games. We've conceded the most goals. We've got the worst defensive record. So we are, unfortunately, where we deserve to be. People might argue we shouldn't be there, myself, but the reality is we are there. And there's only one way we can go, which is up. So there needs to be a massive turnaround soon.